weeks is a scandal. We need action now.
Sign our petition. Demand better services.
Overall now, justice for mental health.
There's a particular kind of story that doesn't just land, it lingers because it forces a question that nobody in power enjoys answering. How did this person slip through? The man now at the center of a terror investigation in Golders Green, Essa Suleiman, is not a blank slate. He is not someone who appeared out of nowhere, fully formed on a quiet London street. He has a past, a violent one. And that past is now dragging itself into the present like unfinished business. The 2008 attack. This wasn't the first time. Let's go back. Swindon, 2008. A 999 call comes in. Knife attack. Police respond. PC Neil Sampson arrives with his police dog, Anya. They pursue a suspect. Then everything turns. The man they're chasing doesn't run. He turns and he attacks, repeatedly stabbing the officer with what was believed to be a bread knife. Not once, not in panic, repeatedly. And when the police dog moves in to protect her handler, she's stabbed too, in the chest. A trained animal doing exactly what she was trained to do, protect, and taking a blade for it. A second officer is also injured. This wasn't a scuffle. This wasn't things got out of hand. This was sustained, directed violence. The sentence for that attack. Essa Suleiman was jailed for 9 years for grievous bodily harm. 9 years, with at least half to be served in custody. That's not a slap on the wrist. That's the system recognizing serious danger, recognizing that this individual was capable of extreme violence against authority, against people, against anything that got in the way. Fast forward, prevent referral, now move forward. 2020, Suleiman is referred to prevent. For those who don't know, prevent is part of the UK's counter-terror strategy. Its job is simple in theory, complicated in reality. Identify individuals at risk of radicalization and intervene before violence happens, not after, before. So when someone is referred to prevent, it means concern has already been raised. Something in their behavior, their associations, their trajectory triggered attention. This is not random. This is a flag. And then, the case was closed later that same year. Closed. No ongoing intervention. No continued monitoring under that program. Just. And now, years later, the same individual is arrested again. This time in a case being treated as terrorism. The question that won't go away. This is where the story stops being just about one man and starts becoming about a system. Because once you line up the timeline, the question becomes unavoidable. What happened between where concerned and case closed? What changed? What was assessed? What risk was judged to be reduced or no longer present? Because the entire point of prevent is early intervention, to catch trajectories before they turn into outcomes. The gap between assessment and reality. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Systems don't fail loudly. They fail quietly, in decisions that seem reasonable at the time, in risk assessments that don't fully capture what someone might become, in closures that make sense on paper but not in hindsight, because predicting human behavior is not clean, it's not mathematical. It's a mix of signals, probabilities, judgment calls, and sometimes those calls are wrong. Repeat violence is not random. There's another layer to this. Violence of this intensity is rarely isolated. Someone who has previously carried out a sustained knife attack on a police officer is not starting from zero. That history matters, not as automatic proof of future action, but as context, as pattern, as a signal that capacity exists. The prevent debate. Again, every time a case like this emerges, the same debate resurfaces around prevent. Some argue it goes too far, that it surveils communities unfairly, that it casts suspicion too widely. Others argue the opposite, that it doesn't go far enough, that it misses critical warning signs, that interventions are too light, too short, too easy to close, and this case drops straight into that fault line. Because here you have a violent history, a prevent referral, a closed case, and now a terror investigation. That sequence is not politically neutral.
Prevent UK does not prevent terrorism.
Spying on us, not stopping attacks.
Useless, useless. Millions wasted while attacks keep happening.
Stop prevent.
The public reaction, people are going to look at this and think he was known, he was flagged, he was referred, and then ask, so why wasn't more done? It's a simple question, but the answer is never simple because systems are built to balance risk and rights. Intervene too aggressively and you infringe on liberties. Intervene too lightly and you risk missing escalation. That's the tightrope, and sometimes people fall off it. The reality check. Let's be clear about something. A prevent referral is not a conviction. It is not proof of intent. It is an early warning system, and early warning systems are not perfect. But when someone moves from being flagged to being investigated in a terror case years later, it forces scrutiny, serious scrutiny. A man now at the center of a terror investigation once stabbed a police officer repeatedly, stabbed the police dog in the chest, injured another officer, went to prison, was later referred to prevent, and then cleared. Now he is back in the system again, under far more serious circumstances. This is not just a timeline, it's a chain, and every link in that chain matters. Because somewhere between 2008 and now, between conviction and release, between referral and closure, something either changed or something was missed. And that is the part that will define this story. Not just what he did, but what was known, what was seen, what was decided, and whether those decisions hold up under the weight of what has happened since. Because when the same name appears twice in the story of serious violence, it stops being coincidence. It becomes a question, one the system is now going to have to answer, and that answer cannot be vague. It cannot be buried in technical language or softened into lessons will be learned, because the public doesn't hear that anymore as reassurance. They hear it as delay, as distance, as a way of saying something went wrong without saying how or why. But this case demands specifics. What risk was identified in 2020? What threshold led to the case being closed? What follow-up, if any, existed beyond that closure? Because if the system is designed to intervene early, then the gap between intervention and outcome is where accountability lives, not in hindsight alone, but in process. And if that process didn't hold, then it's not just about one individual. It's about whether the framework built to prevent escalation is actually strong enough to do what it claims. Because prevention is only meaningful if it prevents. Otherwise, it becomes documentation, a record of concern that never translates into protection. And right now, that distinction matters more than ever, because this isn't just about the past catching up. It's about whether the future is being handled any differently.